Hello friends, today I am going to discuss in this lecture the slope of LM curve. The slope of LM curve is very important to understand that to what extent fiscal policy would be effective, right? It would also help us to understand that to what extent monetary policy would be effective. So the slope of LM curve and IS curve, right, are very important to identify which policy would be effective in changing the level of GDP in the economy, right? So therefore, we must understand that what determines the slope of IS curve and LM curve. We have already discussed in one of the lectures the factors which determine the slope of IS curve. Now we are going to discuss the factors which determine the slope of LM curve, right? Here we have got two diagrams. Two diagrams stand for understanding the effect of two factors which are responsible for the slope of LM curve, right? If you look at this money market, this money demand equation that is given by Ky minus Hi, right? So here it is the K and H are responsible for slope of LM curve. How do they affect the slope of LM curve? That we study in these two diagrams. First diagram, I am taking a case of K, that how does K affect the slope of LM curve. What is K? K is a parameter which shows that how much portion of income would be kept in the form of money, right? So this positive relationship between money demand and Y is shown by K. If K is higher for the same income, money demand would be higher. If K is lower for the same income, money demand would be lower, right? Generally it happens, right? The factors which affect the K is primarily, let us say you have got a lot of information technology being applied in our payment system, in our banking system, right? You can make most of the transactions using cards, right? You don't need to hold cash. In that situation, your K would be lower. On the other hand, if you have got very primitive kind of banking system where you have to stand in queue to withdraw the cash, right? It takes 2 hours, right? Or 3 hours or 5 hours, which used to take, at the time of economic liberalizations, right? The value of K would be higher because you would like to keep more cash with yourself, right? So let us see that to what extent K affect the slope of LM curve, right? So that is what your K is. So the K is the proportion of income held in the form of cash. I mean, it can also tell you the sensitivity or responsiveness of money demand to Y, right? So this is what your K is. So let us take the case of K, that how does change in K affect the slope of LM curve, right? Now here we have derived LM curve, assuming value of K to be this K, right? As you know, when we have to derive LM curve, we have to assume a specific level of income level, a specific level of equilibrium income. That is our, here we are assuming to be Y naught, right? Now at this Y naught equilibrium income, right, what is equilibrium rate of interest? For that we need to go to money market and there draw money demand for this equilibrium level of income, right? Now as we know that money supply is always exogenous, it is given, therefore money supply line is expressed by M bar upon P. So that is what your money demand line. Now the money demand line, money supply line, this is your money supply line, and this corresponding to Y naught, we draw money demand line. Now that money demand line would be downward sloping, right? That tells you that given level of income, as interest rate falls, money demand rises. If interest rate rises, money demand falls, right? So, and also the reason for this inverse relationship between money demand and rate of interest is that when rate of interest is higher, the cost of keeping money at home is higher. Therefore, you would like to minimize the cost, and then you would hold the bond or you hold the fixed deposit rather than holding money. In that situation, the money demand goes down. Similarly, if the rate of interest is very low, then you would like to hold money, because keeping money in the form of non-money financial assets is always risky, and that risk is according to your perception is much more than what you would like to be, and therefore you would like to keep your money in your pocket, right? Because anyway the cost of holding money is not much higher, right? So that is what the relationship between money demand and rate of interest, right? So given this equilibrium level of income Y0, we have drawn here this black line, which stands for money demand line for equilibrium level of income Y0, right? So this we get, which is L is equal to K Y0 minus HI, right? Now this given this money supply and money demand at equilibrium level of income Y0, right? It gives us intersection point or equilibrium point at E0, right? At E0, money demand is equal to money supply, and therefore corresponding rate of interest, which we get as I0, is equilibrium rate of interest. And this equilibrium rate of interest is associated with Y0 equilibrium level of income, right? Now this combination gives you what? Money market equilibrium, or at the combinations of Y0 and I0, money market is in equilibrium. Now that combinations we present here in the second diagram, right? So we identify I0 here, which is similar to this I0. Now this I0 is associated with Y0, and that combinations of Y0 and I0 is represented by point A, right? Now when income rises from Y0 to Y1, what would happen? Right? Look at this. If income rises, money demand rises. But how much money demand would rise? Money demand would rise by delta Y into K, right? So this would be rise in money demand, right? Okay, so money demand would rise. Okay, that means we are assuming that at I0 interest rate, if income rises from Y0 to Y1, money demand would rise. Now when money demand rises, what will happen? Money demand line shifts rightward. Horizontal shift of the money demand line would be to the extent of K delta Y, right? So your money demand line shifts rightward. What do you find? That I0 is no more equilibrium rate of interest. What is the equilibrium rate of interest? Where this new money demand line, which is written as L is equal to KY1 minus HI, right? L is equal to KY1 minus HI. That money demand line intersects the money supply line. That gives us equilibrium point at E1, right? And this gives us equilibrium rate of interest, right? So you get I1 as new equilibrium rate of interest, and that is corresponding to which equilibrium level of income? Y1, right? So we get a new combination of income and interest rate at which money market is in equilibrium. That combination we show in this diagram, right, by this point B, right? So the point B has combination of what? Y1 and I1, right? So the point B is the combination of income Y1 and interest rate I1 such that money market is in equilibrium, right? When we join A and B, we derive what? LM curve, right? And this LM curve is corresponding to which value of K, right? It's a K, right? K, right? So this is corresponding to what you call K, right? So K is nothing but the parameter which shows the relationship between money demand and income. Fine. Now suppose, take another situation in an economy where K is higher, right? As I said, the value of K depends upon, number one, information technology in the payment system, right? The kind of banking arrangement we have, the convenience that we have with respect to change of money into non-money assets and change of non-money assets into monetary assets, right? So all those factors determine the value of K, right? Now take a situation where you have got very uncertainty in the banking system, right? Or going to bank is very tedious task, withdrawing money is very tedious task, right? So what will you do? Most portions of your income you would keep in the form of cash rather than deposits or bond, right? So in that case the value of K is higher. So now let us say we have now new money demand function that is written as K dash Y minus HI, right? So the value of K changes and we are assuming that K dash is greater than K, right? K dash is greater than K, right? Now if K dash is greater than K, then we need to draw again equilibrium in the money market corresponding to Y0 interest rate, right? So now at Y0 interest rate we get this what you call new money demand line, right? That tells you that at same interest rate there is higher demand for money because the value of K has gone up, right? So we have drawn this green line which stands for money demand, corresponding to Y0 income and corresponding to higher value of K, which is written here as K prime, right? So K prime. So now you get L prime is the new money demand function, right? Or new money demand line, which is equal to K prime Y0 minus HI, right? So you get now this new money demand line. Now this new money demand line gives us equilibrium point at not E0 but at E0 prime, right? At E0 prime you get I0 prime, new equilibrium rate of interest. Now this I0 prime is corresponding to which level of income? Y0, right? So we get new combination of interest and income, right? Income is the same but the interest rate is higher one, I0 prime, and that combination is shown at point A, right? At point A prime, I am calling it, it's different from A. So it is just located over Y0 and to the right side of I0 prime. So it is A prime. So A prime stands for Y0 and I0 prime combinations of income and interest rate at which money market is in equilibrium, right? Now suppose income rises from Y0 to Y1. What would happen? Money demand would rise, right? But how much money demand would rise? It would rise by the value of parameter, and now the parameter is K prime, right? Multiplied by change in income. So the income changes by the same amount which it used to change when the value of K was given by K, right? But now the value of sensitivity of money demand to income has gone up to K prime, right? Then money demand change would be delta L prime. Now if I ask you that this delta L prime is greater than or lower than this delta L prime is greater than or lower than delta L, so definitely delta L prime would be greater than delta L. Why? Because the value of parameter which relates money demand and income has gone up, right? Therefore the horizontal shift of this green line, which stands for new money demand line after change in value of K, would be more than what it used to happen in case of the previous value of K, right? So there the horizontal shift was K delta Y. Now the horizontal shift would be more than this, right? It would be K prime delta Y, right? So you get green money demand line shifting rightward, right? And this new money demand line corresponding to Y1 income is written here as L is equal to, this money demand line is expressed in the functional form as L is equal to K prime Y1 minus HI, right? Now this money demand is intersecting money supply line at E1 prime, and that gives us I1 prime rate of interest. Now this I1 prime rate of interest is associated with Y1, and that combination is shown at point B, right? So this point B is located above Y1 and in front of I1 prime. So you get B prime as new point, which tells you or shows the combinations of Y1 and I1 prime at which money market is in equilibrium. Now when we join A prime and B prime, the way we join A and B to derive LM curve, right, we get new line that we call LM curve, right? And that new LM curve we are writing as LM prime, right? So what has happened that if the value of K, right, if the value of parameter which relates money demand and income is K, then we get this LM curve. And when the value of parameter relating money demand and income is K prime, then we get this LM line. Now if I ask you which line has got more slope, LM or LM prime? Definitely LM prime, right? Because it is steeper. Climbing on this mountain is harder than climbing on this mountain, right? And therefore wherever climbing on mountain is harder, that basically, or you can call it ladder, right? So more is the steepness of the climbing segment of either mountain or stair, right? Harder would be for the climber to climb, right? So this is what your new LM curve, right? So the slope is higher of LM prime as compared to LM. So what do we get here? We get here that if value of K rises, what happens to the slope of LM rises, right? Similarly with the same logic, if the value of K falls, right, slope of LM falls. So this is what determines the slope of LM curve, right? And why the slope of LM curve matters? Because this is going to decide the effectiveness of fiscal policy, right? When LM curve is steeper, right, then fiscal policy would be less effective. What is the logic? The logic is the following, that when K is higher, right, K is higher and government increases expenditure, G rises, through that income rises. But when income rises, being K higher, money demand rises more. And when money demand rises more, given money supply, rate of interest also rises more. And when rate of interest rises more, then investment, which is part of aggregate demand in goods market, right, falls more. And therefore, whatever positive contribution was made by rise in government expenditure, right, gets offset by decline in private investment, and therefore net rise in GDP would be less than a situation where value of K is smaller, right? So this is where your rule of fiscal policy, the rule of slope of LM curve comes in to study that to what extent fiscal policy would be effective, right? So this is one factor which affects the slope of LM curve. I hope I have made clear about the relationship between the value of K and the slope of LM curve. Now the other factor which affect the slope of LM curve is H. What is H? H is sensitivity or responsiveness of money demand to change in interest rate. As we know that rate of interest and money demand are inversely related. Okay, so to what extent their inverse relationship is decided by the value of H. If the H is higher, little change in interest rate would cause more change in money demand. And if H is lower, the little change in or higher change in interest rate would cause less change in money demand. So that is what the significance of H is. Okay. Now in money demand line, right, we always take, when we are deriving money demand line, we always take K as constant and Y as constant, and then we try to find out relationship between money demand and rate of interest, because the rate of interest appears only in the second term, right? Now it is the slope of money demand line, okay, that reflects the value of H, right? If the H is very high, generally we will find that the money demand line is flat, right? That means little change in interest rate would cause more change in money demand, right? And if the value of H is smaller, the slope of money demand line is steeper. So this is what the discussions about what determines the slope of money demand line, right? Anyway, now how does slope of money demand line affect the slope of LM curve? In other words, how does value of H, which determines the slope of money demand line, affect the slope of LM curve? And that is what we are going to study here. Again, first we have derived this LM curve corresponding to this value of H, right? So we are taking initially money demand function as L is equal to Ky minus Hi, right? And that is being reflected here by this black money demand line. So first we derive LM curve with respect to this normal or initial money demand line, where the value of K is fixed, right? Value of sensitivity of money demand to change in interest rate is given by H, right? So for this Y0 equilibrium level of income, right, this black line is the one which shows the relationship between interest rate and money demand, right? And it is downward sloping. So we get money demand line L is equal to Ky0 minus Hi. The way here we derived the initial LM curve, right? So we get the equilibrium point at E0, right? Because the money demand line corresponding to Y0 at the value of H is intersecting money supply line at E0, and that gives us equilibrium interest rate at I0, right? So this I0 is associated with which equilibrium level of income? Y0. So we get a combination of interest rate Y0 and I0 at point A, right? And that point A is characterized by what? Money market equilibrium, right? As income rises, right, there is horizontal shift of black line to the extent of K into delta Y, right? So you get new money demand line, which is represented here by Ky1 minus Hi, and that gives us equilibrium point in money market at E1. That gives us I1 interest rate. This I1 interest rate is associated with which level of income? Y1, right? So here in this diagram you got Y1. So this Y1 is associated with I1 such that money market is in equilibrium, and that combinations of Y1 and I1 is represented by point B. When we join A and B, we get LM curve, right? You could see here we have this is the third LM curve we are deriving this diagram. Okay. Now, so this is your LM curve corresponding to value of sensitivity of money demand to change in interest rate, which is H, right? Now take a situation where H is higher. That means money demand is very sensitive to change in rate of interest. Little change in rate of interest is going to affect you from the point of view of holding money, right? If rate of interest rises a little bit, you hold less money, more bond or more fixed deposit, and if rate of interest falls a little bit, then you hold more of money and less of bond or fixed deposit, right? So that is what the value of H is, right? Now if H is higher, then money demand line is going to be flatter, right? So you get this red money demand line, which I am representing here as this by this L prime, which is equal to ky naught minus h prime I, right? The value of h, what you call, so we get now what you call money demand functions. Here I am writing it. L is equal to ky minus h prime I. So this is your new money demand line, right? So given this equilibrium level of income y naught, right, this is the money demand line, right? Okay, because the value of h has risen, and therefore this money demand line becomes flatter, right? And this flatter line of money demand, I am deliberately taking it through point E naught. You can take it above or below, it will not make any difference to our analysis. But just for simplifications, I am taking it through E naught itself, right? Okay, so what do you get? For higher level of H, right, we get this money demand line, which is L prime is equal to ky naught minus h prime I, that intersects the money supply line at E naught, and the equilibrium rate of interest is I naught, right? Now this I naught equilibrium level of interest rate is associated with which level of income? Y naught, right? Such that money market is in equilibrium. So let us say that combinations of I naught and Y naught is represented by point A. You can have point A anywhere if you put this money demand line below E naught or above E naught. That will not make any difference to our analysis, right? As I said, for simplicity, I am drawing it through E naught, okay? Now, so we have got, for higher value of H, we have got one combinations of income and interest rate at which money market is in equilibrium. Now suppose income rises. Income rises. Might be rising because of rising government expenditure, or because of rise in transfer payment, okay? Or because of rise in investment, or because autonomous investment, or because of rise in autonomous net export, okay? So if income rises from Y0 to Y1, what will happen? Money demand line will shift rightward. What will be the shift of rightwardness of, what would be the degree of shift of money demand line to the right hand side? Exactly by the same amount which we observed in case of black money demand line, right? Because value of K, right? Look at this, the original initial money demand functions and the new money demand functions, right? The value of K is same. So if income rises from Y0 to Y1, right, rise in money demand would be exactly by the same amount K into delta Y at I0 interest rate, okay? So your money demand line shifts rightward, okay? Now when money demand line shifts rightward, this, right, so we saw that red line shifting rightward by drawing this money demand line, right? So this is your new money demand line, which is parallel to the previous money demand line and has shifted to the extent of same horizontal distance which we observed in the previous value of H, okay? Now once we have drawn this new money demand line, which I am writing here as L prime is equal to ky1 minus h prime I, right? Now this money demand line is intersecting the money supply line below E1, right? And let us call this intersection point as E1 prime, and that gives us I1 prime equilibrium rate of interest. Now this I1 prime equilibrium rate of interest is associated with which equilibrium level of income such that money market is in equilibrium, right? Obviously Y1. Now can we identify that combinations of I1 prime and Y1 in this diagram? Yes, just above Y1 and to the right side of I1 prime, right? So this I1 prime is exactly this I1 prime. So this I1 prime, right, is represented, and this I1 prime and Y1 is represented by this point called B prime, right? So the B prime is what? A new combinations of income Y1 and interest rate I1 prime at which money market is in equilibrium. Now, assuming that A is the equilibrium point in the money market, representing equilibrium point in the money market, right, at Y0 income, and B prime is the new equilibrium point in the money market at Y1 income, right. If we join A and B prime, right, the way we did previous LM curve by joining A and B, here also we join A and B prime, we get new LM curve, which is represented by LM prime corresponding to H prime, which is sensitivity of money demand to change in interest rate, right. So what do we find? That LM curve is flatter. That means what? If H rises, what happens to the slope of LM curve? Falls. Similarly, if H falls, slope of LM rises. Okay, slope of LM rises. Okay, so now if I tell you or if I ask you that in which case fiscal policy would be more effective, in this case or this case, right? Definitely, as we know, that flatter is the LM curve, more effective is the fiscal policy. Steeper is the LM curve, less effective is the fiscal policy, right? So in case of this, what happens that when income rises from Y0 to Y1, money demand rises in the money market, but then to offset rise in money demand, to bring money market into equilibrium, right, money demand must fall, and which will ensure the fall in money demand? It is the rate of interest. Now, being money demand being more sensitive to rate of interest, little bit rise in interest rate would cause more money demand to fall and will ensure that money market goes into equilibrium. And when the rate of interest rises by a smaller amount, then fall in investment in the goods market would be lower, and therefore here rise in government expenditure would be more effective in raising the equilibrium level of income, right? So this is what the implications of slope of LM curve with respect to effectiveness of fiscal policy. Remember, here the slope of LM curve is not only going to decide the effectiveness of fiscal policy, but it is also going to decide the effectiveness of monetary policy, right? Now, as far as effectiveness of fiscal policy and monetary policy showing through graphical illustration is concerned, right? We can understand the slope of LM curve and IS curve while we are discussing the determinations of equilibrium, income and interest rate, right, bringing together IS and LM curve, which will complete our analysis of IS-LM model. So I hope I am able to make you clear, right? Just to repeat, that slope of LM curve is determined by value of K and value of H. More K, slope of the LM curve is higher. Less K, the slope of LM curve is lower. Higher value of H, the slope of LM curve is lower. Lower is the H, higher is the slope of LM curve. So this is what the relationship of K and H with respect to slope of LM curve. These K and H are the ultimate determinants of the slope of LM curve, right? So this is what I had to discuss with respect to determinants of the slope of LM curve. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.